Somewhere in the quietest moments of a man's life, there exists something more powerful than beauty, status, or grand gestures. A little thing, so subtle, so natural, yet it shapes how deeply he connects, how much he treasures, and how long he stays. Men don't fall in love the way women do. While deep conversations and emotional exchanges draw women in, a man's heart surrenders to something unspoken. The way he feels in your presence. The way you look at him when he's lost in thought. The way you trust his decisions without questioning his every move. Or the way you respect his space without making him feel guilty. These things are not loud. They don't demand attention. But they create a feeling so rare, so irreplaceable that no force can shake it. This is the psychology of male attraction. The hidden keys to making a man fall in love deeply and stay emotionally attached. Today, we unveil 8 powerful little things women do that make men commit, connect, and cherish. These are not tricks, not fleeting tactics, but timeless truths rooted in Stoic wisdom, emotional intelligence, and self-respect. Stay with me, because this isn't just about love, it's about mastering the art of connection, self-worth, and inner peace. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. And after watching, tell me in the comments, which of these little things speaks to you the most. 1. Be his safe place, not another source of stress. Men don't talk about it, they don't ask for it, but deep down, they crave it. A place where they don't have to be strong all the time. A space where they can set down the weight of the world and just be. Not a battlefield, not a proving ground, just home. A woman who understands this doesn't fight for his attention and doesn't chase his validation. She becomes the person he wants to return to, not because he must, but because he can't stay away. She knows that love isn't about fixing him. It's about giving him the freedom to exhale without judgment. You see, men carry more than what they show. A rough day at work, silent frustrations, the unspoken pressure to succeed, it all builds up inside them. And in a world where they are expected to push through, what they truly desire isn't more noise, more questioning, more expectations. It's peace. The kind of peace that doesn't require words, the kind that tells him, you are safe here. This is Stoicism at its core. A Stoic doesn't impose control, they cultivate harmony. They don't demand an explanation for every emotion, they allow space for them to exist. Strength isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about knowing when to be still, when to listen, and when to simply be present. Now let's step into a moment. A simple evening, a quiet act, the kind that changes everything. Your partner walks in, shoulders heavy with the weight of the day. Work has drained him. Maybe a difficult client, an overwhelming deadline, or just the silent frustration of feeling like nothing went right. His face doesn't show it clearly, but you know. You see it in the way he exhales, the way his steps are just a little slower. Once you might have asked a dozen questions. What's wrong? Did something happen? Why do you look upset? Not out of impatience, but because you cared, because you wanted to help. But today, you don't ask, you choose something different. You step forward, wrap your arms around him from behind, resting your head against his back. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's just there, soft, steady, unshakable. You've worked hard today, you whisper. No interrogation, no pressure to explain. Just the reassurance that you see him, that you recognize his effort, even when the world doesn't. And in that moment, he breathes. The tension eases from his shoulders. His arms reach up to hold yours. He doesn't have to say a word, because he knows you understand, because this is what home feels like. This is where feminine softness meets unshakable power. Where you don't just support him, you become the woman he never wants to lose. Because you aren't just another demand in his life. You are his peace. The greatest mistake women make isn't nagging or asking too many questions. It's assuming that love is proven through words alone, that reassurance comes from solving his problems for him. But the deepest connection is built in the spaces between words. In the way you let him process in his own time, in the way you create a space where he can breathe, reset, and come back stronger. Stoic philosophy teaches this in the purest way. A Stoic doesn't react to every emotion, nor do they fear them. They understand that people, especially men, often need time to sort through their thoughts before they can express them. They recognize that peace isn't given, it's created. So the next time he comes home tired, don't rush to fix, to question, to demand. Just be. Let your presence speak what words cannot. Offer quiet understanding instead of endless concern. Because when a man feels emotionally safe with you, he will always come back. He will always choose you. Not because he has to, but because he can't imagine feeling this way anywhere else. And when you master this, something shifts, not just in love, but in life. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself, to chase, to demand constant validation. You become the kind of woman who exudes confidence, who radiates a quiet strength that draws people in effortlessly. Because the most powerful presence is the one that needs no validation. And just like that, you become unforgettable. Now, what happens when you combine this energy with something even more powerful? The way you see him, admire him, and uplift him. Stay with me, because that's where we're going next. 2. Show genuine appreciation for what he does. A man might never say it, but deep down, he longs for something more than love. He craves appreciation. Not just for what he provides, not just for the things he does, but for who he is. In a world where his worth is often measured by his achievements, by how much he earns, and by how well he performs, a simple acknowledgement can mean everything. When a woman truly sees him, not just as a provider, not just as someone who should do things, but as a person with struggles, ambitions, and sacrifices, it awakens something in him. It makes him feel valued in a way that no one else does. And that is powerful. Because a man doesn't stay where he is simply tolerated. He stays where he feels admired, recognized, and deeply appreciated. And yet, appreciation is often misunderstood. Many assume it's about flattery, about saying thank you out of politeness. But real appreciation, it's deeper. It's noticing the small things. It's recognizing effort even when it's unspoken. It's making him feel that what he does is not just expected, but treasured. This is Stoicism in practice. A Stoic doesn't take anything for granted. They cultivate gratitude, not just in grand gestures, but in the everyday moments most overlook. When we shift our mindset from expecting to appreciating, everything changes, not just in love, but in life. Because true confidence isn't about demanding more. It's about recognizing the value of what is already there. Now, imagine this moment. A seemingly ordinary day. A quiet yet profound realization. It's late, and you're exhausted. Work has drained you, responsibilities have piled up, and all you want is a moment to breathe. You step into the kitchen, half expecting the usual mess. But tonight, something is different. The dishes have already been cleaned, the counters are wiped down, the small things, those that usually go unnoticed, have been taken care of. You glance over and he's there, casually scrolling through his phone as if it's nothing. He didn't do it for praise. He didn't expect a reward. But something in you softens. Before, maybe you wouldn't have said anything. Maybe you would have thought, it's normal, it's just a small thing. But tonight, you choose differently. You walk over, lean against the counter, and with a genuine smile you say, I see what you did. Thank you. His eyes flicker up, surprised at first. Then something shifts in his expression, something almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably real. A quiet kind of pride. A moment where he feels seen, valued, and appreciated. He shrugs it off like it's nothing, but you know better, because it's not about the dishes, it's about being recognized. And that stays with him. That makes him want to do more, not out of obligation, but because he feels like what he does matters. This is where so many relationships fall apart, not because of big fights, betrayals, or lack of love, but because over time people stop noticing. They stop acknowledging, they stop appreciating. And what once felt special becomes routine. What once felt treasured becomes expected. A man will never say, I need to feel appreciated. But he will feel the absence of it. And when that absence lingers too long, something inside him shifts. He withdraws. Not because he doesn't love, but because love without appreciation feels hollow. But Stoic wisdom teaches us something different. It reminds us that nothing should ever be taken for granted. That the smallest act of kindness, when truly recognized, holds more weight than any grand gesture. That appreciation isn't just a social nicety. It's a foundation for deeper connection, stronger bonds, and unshakable loyalty. Gratitude in love is like oxygen. You don't always see it, but the moment it disappears, everything begins to suffocate. So what does this mean for you? It means learning to see, not just look, to notice, not just acknowledge. To understand that appreciation is not about words, it's about presence. A soft touch when he least expects it. A glance that says I see you even when he doesn't say a word. A recognition of effort, no matter how small. These moments build something unbreakable. Because when a man feels appreciated, he doesn't just stay. He thrives, he commits, he gives back tenfold. So the next time he does something, no matter how small, pause. Notice it. Acknowledge it. Not just because it's polite, but because it strengthens something invisible, yet profoundly real between you. And when you do, he won't just feel appreciated, he'll feel drawn to you in a way he can't explain. But what happens when you combine appreciation with something even more irresistible? A playful challenge, the kind that sparks his curiosity and keeps him coming back. Stay with me, because that's where we're going next. 3. Playfully challenge him. Men are wired for the challenge. Not just in their careers, not just in competition, but in love. They are drawn to what excites them, what sparks their curiosity, what keeps them engaged, intrigued, and wanting more. It's not about being difficult or distant. It's about being a woman who brings an energy so magnetic that he can't help but be pulled toward it. A woman who knows how to playfully challenge a man keeps him on his toes, not by playing games, but by creating moments that make him think, laugh, and feel alive. She teases him in a way that makes his heart race. She knows when to push back, when to add a little mystery, when to make him work just a little harder for her attention. And this is what makes him stay. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because he feels something with you that he doesn't feel anywhere else. This is Stoicism in a different form. A Stoic doesn't seek approval, they don't bend to please, they stand firm in their own presence, knowing that real attraction comes from confidence, not from chasing. When you master this, you stop fearing loss, you stop wondering if he'll stay. Because you become the kind of woman who is so captivating that the thought of losing you never crosses his mind. Now, let's step into a moment, a shift in energy, a spark that changes everything. It's a Saturday afternoon. The sun filters through the windows, casting a warm glow on the room. You're sitting across from him, legs tucked under you on the couch. He's relaxed, scrolling through his phone, then suddenly looks up with that playful arrogance men get when they think they have you all figured out. "You know," he says, leaning back, "I'd totally beat you in a game of chess. I just have that kind of strategic mind." You don't roll your eyes, you don't brush it off. Instead, you meet his gaze with a slow, knowing smile. "Oh, really? That's the best flex you've got?" He blinks, surprised at first, then intrigued. His competitive side kicks in. "Wait, are you actually doubting my skills?" You stretch lazily, tilting your head, pretending to consider. "I mean, I just think confidence should be backed up with proof. But hey, if you're scared to put it to the test, I understand." Now, he's hooked. He's leaning forward, reaching for the chessboard like his reputation depends on it. And just like that, the energy shifts. The air crackles with tension. Not the kind that pushes people apart, but the kind that pulls them closer. He's playing now, but he's not just thinking about the game. He's thinking about you, about how effortlessly you got under his skin, about how you make even the smallest moment feel electric. And that's the kind of woman a man never forgets. Because it's not about winning the game, it's about creating a moment, a feeling, a spark that makes him see you differently. This is where so many women get it wrong. They think challenge means being cold, being hard to get, and being distant. But it's never about being unavailable, it's about being unforgettable. A man doesn't want a woman who agrees with everything he says, who always nods along, who never pushes back. He wants someone who makes him think, who makes him laugh, who makes him work for it just enough to keep it exciting. Stoic wisdom teaches this at its core. A Stoic doesn't chase. They don't cling. They don't seek validation. They move with certainty, with ease, with a quiet confidence that draws people in without effort. Confidence isn't about being better than someone else. It's about knowing your own worth so deeply that you don't need to prove it. And when a woman embodies this, when she knows she's the prize, when she challenges him in a way that's playful and engaging, she becomes addicted. So the next time you find yourself in a moment with him, resist the urge to simply agree, to always go with the flow. Tease him, make him prove himself in the most effortless way. Because when a man feels challenged in the right way, he doesn't just stay, he craves more. And when you master this, you don't just keep his interest, you become the woman he can't stop thinking about. 4. Make him feel respected and valued. A man might admire the beauty, he might be drawn to charm, but what makes him stay? Respect. It's not just something he desires, it's something he needs. Without it, no amount of attraction, no level of chemistry, and no deep emotional connection can make him commit. A man's love grows strongest when he feels seen, valued, and respected. Not just for what he does, but for who he is. Respect is not about blind submission or agreeing with everything he says. It's about recognizing his strengths, understanding his struggles, and trusting his ability to lead his own life. And here's where many women unintentionally push a man away. They don't mean to, but they question his every decision, correct his every move, or unintentionally make him feel like he's never quite enough. Over time, this erodes something deep inside him. A respected man feels empowered. An unappreciated man feels trapped, and no man stays where he feels small. Respect is not something you demand, it's something you cultivate. It's in the way you listen, in the way you trust, in the way you let a man be himself, without trying to mold him into someone else. And when a woman understands this, when she learns to balance her strength with her ability to make him feel valued, something changes. He no longer sees her as just someone he loves. He sees her as someone he never wants to lose. This is where Stoicism offers its greatest wisdom. A Stoic never forces control, they guide through understanding, through self-awareness, through the quiet strength of knowing when to speak and when to trust. A truly strong woman doesn't need to prove her intelligence by tearing him down. She elevates herself by recognizing his strengths while standing firm in her own. Now let's take a moment. A simple scene, one that changes everything. It's a rainy evening. You're out for dinner, sitting across from him at a small, candlelit table. The conversation flows easily, laughter coming in waves. But then, a decision comes up. Maybe about a trip, maybe about something small like what to order, maybe something bigger about the future, and instinctively, you feel the urge to correct him. Not because you mean harm, but because you believe you know a better way. Maybe you do. But tonight, instead of interrupting, instead of immediately offering a counterpoint, you choose something different. You pause, let him finish, then smile and say, "I trust your judgment." It's subtle, just a few words. But in that moment, something changes in his eyes. A flicker of pride, confidence, and deep appreciation. Because what you just give him was space. Space to lead, space to be trusted, space to feel like the man he wants to be around you. And the truth is, this isn't about agreeing with everything he says. It's not about silence or passivity. It's about knowing when your words build him up and when they unintentionally tear him down. Men don't need someone who blindly follows their lead. They need someone who trusts them enough to let them figure things out, even if it means making mistakes. This doesn't mean you silence yourself. It doesn't mean you never express your thoughts. But the way you deliver them, that makes all the difference. There's a difference between saying that's a bad idea and saying, "I see where you're coming from, but have you considered this?" Because when a man feels respected, he loves deeper, commits fully, and never takes you for granted. But when he feels constantly second-guessed, when he feels like his opinions don't matter, something inside him shifts. He might not even realize it, but he begins to pull away. Not out of anger or resentment, but because no one stays where they feel insignificant. This is why respect is everything. And it's why Stoic philosophy teaches that strength isn't just about standing tall, it's about knowing when to step back. A truly powerful woman doesn't try to control. She influences, inspires, and leads through trust, not force. So the next time you find yourself about to correct, to push back on something small, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this about being right, or is this about creating a stronger bond? Because when a man feels respected, he wants to be a better man for you. And not because you asked him to, but because your presence alone makes him want to be his best self. And when you master this, you don't just win his heart, you make him never want to leave. 5. Compliment him on things he doesn't expect. Men hear compliments differently than women do. A woman might receive praise for her beauty, her kindness, hand, or style. But men? They often go through life unseen, unacknowledged, and unappreciated for the things that matter most to them. Society teaches men to be strong, to provide, to handle things on their own. They are expected to push through their struggles without complaint. And because of that, they rarely hear words that affirm who they are beneath the surface. A man might get a compliment on his looks, his success, or his skills, but what stays with him, what makes him feel truly connected, is when a woman notices the things he doesn't expect her to notice. The way he protects the people he loves. The way he keeps going even when he's exhausted. The way he always finds a solution, even when no one is watching. That's the difference between surface attraction and deep, lasting connection. This is what Stoicism teaches us: appreciation in its purest form. A Stoic doesn't seek validation, but they recognize the power of sincere acknowledgement. They understand that people thrive when they feel valued, not for what they do, but for who they are. And when you bring this kind of energy into your relationship, you don't just make a man feel good. You make him feel seen. Now, let's step into a moment, a seemingly ordinary interaction, but one that leaves a lasting impact. He's standing by the door, keys in hand, about to head out for another long day. His routine is the same: wake up early, handle responsibilities, and do what needs to be done. He never complains, he never asks for recognition. But today you pause, you step closer, your fingers brushing his sleeve. "You know," you say softly, "I see how much effort you put into everything, the way you handle things without letting anyone see the weight you carry. I just want you to know. I notice." His hand lingers on the doorknob. He looks at you, really looks at you. For a moment, he doesn't know what to say. Compliments? He's used to brushing those off. But this is different, because this isn't about flattery. It isn't about praising his looks, his achievements, or his talents. It's about recognizing his quiet battles, the strength he doesn't show, the struggles he never speaks about, the things he does not for attention but because he believes they need to be done. And when a man feels that kind of acknowledgement, he never forgets it. Later that night, long after he's home, long after the world has quieted, he thinks about your words. He doesn't tell you, but something inside him shifts, because for the first time in a long time, he feels seen. And that is more powerful than anything else. This is why many women unknowingly miss a powerful opportunity. They assume men don't need to hear these things. They assume their presence is enough. But what men crave, what makes them deeply attached, is feeling like their effort is not just expected, but valued. Because deep down, every man carries burdens he doesn't talk about. And when a woman sees them, when she acknowledges them in a way that no one else does, something shifts inside him. A man will always remember the woman who made him feel like his efforts mattered. Because it's rare. Because in a world that expects him to be unshakable, to carry everything alone, having someone recognize his quiet strength means everything. Stoic philosophy reminds us that appreciation is an art. It teaches that true connection isn't built through grand gestures, but in the small, unnoticed moments. When you recognize someone, not for what they give, but for who they are, you create a bond that is unshakable. This is also why true confidence in love isn't about what you receive. It's about what you give. A high-value woman doesn't wait for a man to earn her appreciation. She gives it when it's deserved, without hesitation, without conditions. So the next time you look at him, look beyond the surface. Notice the things he doesn't expect you to. Not just the way he looks in a suit, not just his accomplishments, but the way he keeps showing up, the way he handles stress, the way he silently supports others. And then, tell him. Not in a way that feels forced, not in a way that feels rehearsed, but in a way that feels real. Because when a man feels deeply seen, he doesn't just stay. He holds on tighter than ever. 6. Support his dreams and personal growth. A man may build his world with his own hands, but the woman he chooses to stand beside him influences the foundation of everything he becomes. Men don't just want love. They want to feel like their dreams matter, like their purpose is seen, like their ambitions are worth chasing. A man might appear strong, independent, and unwavering, but deep down there is always a part of him that wonders, do I have what it takes? Will my efforts be enough? Will I make something of myself? And when the woman in his life believes in him, not just in words, but in how she supports his growth, he doesn't just love her, he admires her. A woman who encourages a man's ambition doesn't need to push him, fix him, or direct him. She creates an environment where he feels inspired to push himself. She doesn't hold him back in fear of losing him to his success. She walks beside him, knowing that as he rises, she rises with him. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles are inevitable. Challenges will test him. And in those moments, the person he turns to, the person whose words hold weight in his mind, is the woman he trusts. If she doubts him, he will start to doubt himself. But if she sees his potential even when he doesn't, something inside him strengthens. Let's step into a moment, a quiet but powerful realization. It's late at night, and he's sitting at his desk, hands in his hair, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Another project, another plan, another goal that seems just out of reach. He's frustrated, questioning everything. You notice the tension in his shoulders, the way he exhales slowly as if carrying a weight only he understands. You walk over, not with solutions, not with pressure, but with presence. You lean against the edge of the desk, studying him for a moment. "You know," you say softly, "I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I see how much effort you put into this, and I have no doubt you'll figure it out like you always do." It's not a grand speech. It's not over-the-top motivation. It's belief. A quiet, steady belief that anchors him. He looks at you, and something shifts in his eyes. The frustration doesn't disappear, but the self-doubt eases. Because at this moment he feels something rare. He feels backed. And that is everything. Because the truth is, even the strongest men have moments where they question themselves. They might never say it out loud. They might carry their worries in silence. But inside, there is always a small voice asking, "Am I enough?" A woman who truly supports a man's growth doesn't just say, "I believe in you." She shows it in the way she listens, in the way she doesn't add to his doubts, in the way she reminds him of his strengths when he forgets them himself. And this is where many women unintentionally go wrong. They don't mean to, but in their worry, in their desire to help, they sometimes doubt more than they support. They ask, "Are you sure this is a good idea? What if it doesn't work?" Thinking they are being cautious, they don't realize that these words plant uncertainty in a man's mind. A high-value woman doesn't fuel his fears. She fuels his drive. She trusts him enough to trust his journey, even if he stumbles, even if he fails. Because she knows that a man who is allowed to grow freely will never forget the woman who stood by him as he became his best self. Stoicism teaches us that true strength isn't about control. It's about trust. A Stoic doesn't try to predict the future or force things to happen. They stand strong in the present, adapting, learning, and supporting growth, both in themselves and in others. And when a woman embodies this, when she understands that love isn't about holding a man in place but about growing alongside him, she becomes irreplaceable. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending everything will be easy, but it means recognizing that growth is never comfortable, for him or for you. And that's okay. A man's ambition is deeply tied to his identity. When he dreams, he isn't just thinking about success, he's thinking about who he is becoming. And the woman who sees that, who supports that, who stands beside him instead of standing in his way, she holds a place in his heart that no one else can touch. So the next time he talks about his goals, his ideas, his next move, listen, not to critique, not to analyze, but to understand. Support isn't about giving answers. It's about being the quiet force that reminds him of who he is when he forgets. Because when a man feels truly supported, he doesn't just chase success. He chases a future that always includes you. 7. Give him space without guilt-tripping him. A man's mind is a battlefield, constantly filled with responsibilities, expectations, and the silent weight of things he doesn't say out loud. Sometimes he doesn't need words. He doesn't need fixing. He doesn't need questions. He just needs space. But here's where most women struggle. They feel his distance and mistake it for rejection. They take his silence personally. They start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Is he pulling away? Is he losing interest? And before they realize it, their anxiety spills over into their actions. They start asking more questions. They check in more often. They say things like, "You've been quiet lately. What's wrong?" Or "Do you still want this relationship?" But what they don't realize is this. The more pressure they add, the further he withdraws. Not because he doesn't care, not because he wants to leave, but because space isn't about pulling away. It's about regaining clarity. A man's need for solitude has nothing to do with his feelings for you, and everything to do with how he processes the world. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul." Men don't talk about it, but they crave this peace. They need moments to step back, to think, to reset. And the woman who understands this? She becomes his sanctuary, not his suffocation. But here's the challenge. Giving a man space doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become distant or cold. It means you trust that his silence doesn't equal rejection, that his distance isn't disinterested. A man who feels free to take space without fearing consequences values the woman who gives it to him. Because in a world where people demand constant reassurance, where every text must be answered instantly, where silence is often met with suspicion, your ability to let him breathe is rare. Let's step into a moment, a choice that shifts the energy between two people. It's been a long week. You notice the way he moves, the way his responses have become shorter and his energy lower. The version of him that's usually lighthearted and present now seems lost in thought. In the past, you might have asked, "Is something wrong?" Or maybe you would have tried to bring him closer, filling the silence, checking in more often, needing reassurance. But this time, you try something different. That night, as he sits on the couch scrolling mindlessly, you walk by, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of his head. No questions, no pressure, just presence. "I know you have a lot on your mind," you say softly. "Take your time. I'm here when you're ready." And then, you walk away. You don't sit there waiting for a response. You don't hover, searching for signs that he's okay. You let him come to you, and hours later, when he finally exhales, when his thoughts settle, when he realizes he doesn't have to carry everything alone, he finds you. He pulls you into his arms, holds you a little longer than usual. Because in a world that constantly demands things from him, you gave him the rarest gift, freedom without fear. Most women don't realize that giving a man space isn't about distance. It's about trust. Trust that he will come back. Trust that his silence isn't rejection. Trust that you don't need constant validation to know where you stand. And that kind of confidence is magnetic. But many women unknowingly sabotage this. They let their insecurity control their reactions. They say things like, "If you loved me, you'd talk to me." Or, "I guess you just don't care enough to let me in." But guilt-tripping a man into closeness never works. It doesn't pull him closer, it pushes him further. A Stoic understands this deeply. They don't beg for attention. They don't fear silence. They trust in the strength of their presence. They know that real love isn't about holding on tighter, it's about allowing space to breathe, to grow, to return. And here's the beauty of it all. The more freedom a man feels with you, the more he chooses you. Because space doesn't mean emotional distance. It means trust. It means he knows he can step away to gather his thoughts and come back without tension, without guilt, without fear of losing you. So the next time he pulls back, not out of indifference but out of his own need to reset, let him. Not with resentment, not with fear, but with a quiet, unwavering trust that tells him, "Go find yourself, and when you do, I'll still be here." And when a man feels that, he doesn't just come back, he never wants to leave. 8. Give him unexpected physical affection. Love isn't just spoken, it's felt. It's in the quiet moments, in the way your fingers trace his skin absent-mindedly, in the way you lean into him when words aren't necessary. A man might not say it, but he craves touch just as much as you do. Many women assume men don't need reassurance through physical affection, that they are naturally distant, and that they don't seek comfort in the same way. But this isn't true. Men don't always ask for it, but when it's given, it anchors them in ways they might not even understand themselves. Not the kind of touch that's expected, not when it's planned or routine, but the small, unspoken moments. The way your hand finds his as you walk. The way you press your cheek against his shoulder when he's lost in thought. The way your fingers play with the hair at the nape of his neck when he's had a long day. These aren't grand gestures, but they are powerful because they tell him something words never could. I see you. I feel you. I am here. A man might not say, "I need to feel connected," but if he starts feeling distant, if something inside him feels off, he'll start pulling away, often without realizing why. Stoicism teaches us that action speaks louder than words. That love isn't about saying the right things, it's about showing them. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that applies to love just as much as to life. Let's step into a moment. A simple act, but one that shifts the entire dynamic of a relationship. He's sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through emails, his mind elsewhere. His shoulders look heavier than usual, his face more serious. You don't ask him what's wrong. You don't push for answers. Instead, you walk up behind him, wrap your arms around his shoulders, and rest your cheek against the back of his neck. You don't say a word. You don't need to. For a second, he's surprised. And then, his entire body exhales. The tension in his shoulders melts just a little. The thoughts racing in his head slow down. He reaches up, resting his hand over yours, silently telling you everything you need to know. Because in that moment, he feels something rare, a sense of home. And later, when he pulls you closer on the couch, or when his lips find yours without warning, or when he looks at you like you're the only thing that makes sense in his world, you'll know why. Because love isn't always about the big declarations. Sometimes, it's just about being there. Not with words, not with explanations, but with presence. Most women don't realize this, but men are often starved for affection. Society tells them they need to be strong, that they shouldn't seek comfort, and that they don't need to be held. But the truth, a man who feels emotionally safe with you will crave the way you touch him. But here's where most women go wrong. They assume intimacy should always lead somewhere. That affection is only a prelude to something more. And over time, this changes the way a man receives touch. It stops being about comfort and starts being about expectation. But when you remove the pressure, when affection becomes something that simply exists between you, without conditions, that's when he starts craving it. That's when he starts craving you. A high-value woman understands this. She doesn't need to cling, she doesn't need to demand. She simply knows the power of her presence, and she lets it speak louder than words. So the next time he looks lost in thought, the next time you feel a moment where words aren't enough, don't ask. Just reach for him. Because a man who feels loved in the small moments, he never questions where he belongs. Love isn't built in grand gestures. It's not found in words alone. It's in the way you make someone feel safe, seen, valued. The little things aren't little at all. They are the foundation of something unshakable. Every touch, every moment of understanding, every quiet act of presence, they create a bond stronger than words ever could. When a man feels this, he doesn't just stay, he chooses you over and over again. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming more aware of how the connection works, of how real love isn't about control. It's about trust, respect, and the ability to let someone breathe, knowing they will return. A woman who understands this, she doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, she doesn't fear distance, because she knows her presence is powerful. Stoic wisdom reminds us, what you focus on, you strengthen. If you focus on what's missing, you create a lack. But if you focus on giving, without fear, without insecurity, you build something lasting. So take this knowledge and practice it. Notice the little things. Give warmth without needing something in return. Let love be a space where both of you can grow, not a cage that demands constant reassurance. And as you do, share your experience. What little moments have shaped your relationships? What subtle acts of connection have brought someone closer to you? Leave a comment below. Let's learn from each other, because true love isn't just about feeling something. It's about understanding it, practicing it, and becoming someone worth holding on to.